The story begins with 8 individuals preparing to take an exam that could secure them a job at a prestigious company. Each candidate approached the moment differently. Some motivated themselves with positive affirmations, while others were more focused on their physical appearance. As time passed, they arrived at the examination hall, which was far from ordinary. The room was dimly lit, with security cameras in every corner. Adding to the tension, a guard stood by, armed with a gun. The sight of the weapon made the candidates uneasy, but no one dared to protest. Shortly after, a man entered the room and greeted them warmly. This wasn't just any test, it was the final hurdle after clearing several challenging rounds. Passing this exam would guarantee them the coveted job. The man introduced himself as the invigilator and laid out the rules in a stern tone. The rules were strict and unconventional. No laws of the outside world applied inside this room. Once the timer started, the candidates were prohibited from speaking to either the guard or the invigilator. Breaking this rule meant immediate disqualification. Additionally, if anyone damaged their exam paper or left the room for any reason, they would also be disqualified. The test was set to last 80 minutes, and the task was simple: answer the single question on the exam paper. Success would mean securing the job. After explaining the rules, the invigilator asked, "Do you have any questions?" When no one responded, he set the timer and silently exited the room. The candidates turned to their papers, only to find them completely blank, front, back, and every corner. Bewildered, they exchanged confused glances. One woman decided to write on her paper why she believed she deserved the job. However, as soon as she began writing, the guard approached her, took her paper, and escorted her out of the room. She had violated the rule about damaging the paper. Watching her exit, the remaining candidates grew more anxious and fell silent for a while. After some contemplation, candidate number 5 had a realization. The rules prohibited them from speaking to the guard or the invigilator, but there was no restriction against talking to each other. This revelation sparked a new train of thought in the room. The man tries to rally everyone together, saying if we want to pass this exam, we have to work as a team. Before time runs out, we need to find that one question and figure out the answer. Motivated by his words, the group starts brainstorming ideas about how they could locate the mysterious question. But candidate number 1 just sits there silently, completely detached from the discussion, as if none of this concerns him. During the conversation, one guy tries to introduce himself, but candidate number 5 cuts him off, saying, "Let's give each other nicknames instead. That way, we can keep our real identities secret." The group agrees and starts handing out nicknames. They name candidate number 1 Deaf, since he hasn't spoken a single word so far. The others get nicknames based on their appearances. The guys are called Brown, Black, and White, while the girls are named based on their hair colors, blonde, dark, and brunette. White then suggests, "Hey, maybe we're even allowed to stand up. I mean, they didn't tell us we couldn't." To prove his point, he gets up from his chair, and even though the guard doesn't react, he stays put in his corner of the room. Brunette chimes in, maybe the question is written in invisible ink or marked as a watermark. She gets up and uses the room's light to search her question paper for any hidden text. When she finds nothing, she asks the others to check their papers too. "It's possible the question is on one of your sheets," she says. Everyone starts examining their papers. Deaf, however, remains seated and doesn't move an inch. Annoyed, White snatches his paper and checks it under the light, but like all the others, it's blank too. Black suggests, maybe we need UV rays to see the question. Invisible ink usually shows up under UV light. Blonde suddenly notices a faint blue light between the walls and guesses it might be UV light. The group then searches for a switchboard to turn on the blue lights but finds nothing. No switches, no buttons. Black proposes, what if those blue lights are emergency lights? We need to turn off all the other lights in the room to activate them. But since there's no switchboard, they'd have to smash the bulbs to create darkness. Brown finds the idea risky, but the group takes a vote, and the majority decides to go for it, risking everything to find a question. After breaking all the lights in the room, the blue lights suddenly come on, revealing they were actually emergency lights. Everyone except for Deaf starts checking their question papers, but they still can't see the question. This realization makes them feel even more hopeless as 20 minutes out of the 80 allotted have already passed, leaving them with just 1 hour to figure it out. After much brainstorming, White realizes something. They can experiment on candidate number 2's paper since she was already disqualified from the exam. Acting on this idea, he approaches her desk and starts shading her paper with a pencil, hoping to reveal a hidden question. Despite all his efforts, nothing appears. Frustrated but determined, White rips the paper into 4 parts, allowing others to conduct their own experiments on the pieces. Taking one of the pieces, White goes to the corner of the room, wets it using water from the toilet, and tries to see if the paper reacts to liquid. Unfortunately, this attempt fails too, and the others start mocking him for the toilet trick. As they debate their next move, heated argument breaks out between Black and White, but their attention shifts to Deaf, who is sitting at his desk, crying. Deaf attempts to say something, explaining in French that the papers are somehow reflecting their personalities. However, since no one understands French, they ignore him and dismiss his words. At this point, Brown offers a theory, suggesting that they're not in a real exam, but are instead part of some kind of twisted betting game. According to him, the company's board members are probably watching them struggle for entertainment. Dark, a woman in the group, counters this claim, saying the company doesn't operate like that. She insists their CEO is a strict and principled man who oversees everything with utmost integrity. Her remarks reveal something surprising. Dark knows more about the company than the others. It turns out she already works in the company's HR department but was unhappy with her current position. She had applied for a higher post and needed to clear this exam to secure it. White adds that the company had offered him the job directly, unlike the others who had applied on their own. What's clear, though, is that none of them know much about the company itself. The email sent by the company explicitly stated that no candidate would receive any information about the organization unless they passed the exam. Dark eventually shares that the company is called Berrig, the largest pharmaceutical company in the world, with a monthly turnover of $20 billion. A few years ago, during the pandemic, Berrig had developed an antidote that saved countless lives. Now, the company has created a groundbreaking medicine capable of curing any disease in the world. After a while, Brunette notices the fire alarm in the room and gets an idea. She thinks, what if we activate the alarm and let the sprinklers soak the room? Maybe the water will reveal the question on the paper. Acting on this thought, she grabs a lighter from the guard's pocket, climbs onto her desk, and tries to reach the alarm. But since she's not tall enough, she struggles to get to it. White, noticing her struggle, hands her a paper. Brunette sets it on fire and successfully activates the alarm. Water rains down, drenching the room, but when everyone checks their papers again, they're still blank. Suddenly, the guard approaches Brunette and starts dragging her out of the room. Why? Because the paper she burned to activate the alarm was her own question paper. White had slyly given it to her, effectively disqualifying her from the exam. Black is furious at White for his manipulative behavior. He storms toward White, saying, "I should punch your lights out." As he says this, all the lights in the room go out. That's when they realize the lights are voice-activated. Brown quickly turns them back on and warns everyone to be cautious. Meanwhile, Def, overwhelmed by everything, starts crying at his desk. Seeing this, White approaches him and begins bullying him mercilessly. White's relentless taunting drives Def to the point where he eats his own paper out of frustration. Following the rules, the guard disqualifies Def and escorts him out of the room. Now, only 5 candidates remain. Fed up with White's behavior, Black finally loses his patience. He punches White, knocking him unconscious. The group ties White to a chair and gags him with a tie to prevent further trouble. A while later, White regains consciousness and tries to say something. Dark removes the gag, giving him a chance to speak. White reveals something shocking. He suffers from a severe illness and needs to take a pill every hour to stay alive. He claims to have figured out the question, but demands his medicine in exchange for revealing it. Black checks White's pockets but doesn't find any pills. Suddenly, White collapses, trembling violently. Black identifies the symptoms as seizures caused by his illness and warns that White doesn't have much time left. The group frantically searches for White's medicine. Eventually, Dark finds it on Brown's desk. It becomes clear that Brown had intentionally hidden it. Just as she tries to give the pill to White, Brown snatches it and throws it into a vent. While the others scramble to retrieve the pill, Dark goes to the camera, pleads with the invigilator to save White's life. However, by doing so, she breaks the rules and is disqualified, leaving the room. After Dark exit, Blonde manages to retrieve the pill using a safety pin and gives it to White. They untie him and ask about the question. White reveals, "The question we've been searching for is us. I believe the person who survives in this room after the timer runs out will pass the exam." Before they can process this, White suddenly runs toward the guard and grabs his gun. He tries to fire it but realizes it's fingerprint locked and can only be used by the guard. White forces the guard to unlock the gun and then points it at the others, threatening to shoot if they don't leave the room. Terrified, Brown quietly exits the room. Blonde also starts to leave, but before stepping out, she gives a voice command to turn off the lights. The darkness terrifies White. Panicking, he begins firing wildly in the pitch-black room. When White turns the lights back on, he sees Black lying on the floor, a bullet wound visible in his chest. Just then, White notices the timer on the clock. It's at 0. Confident, he approaches the camera and declares, "I'm the winner of this competition, and the job is mine." But the guard walks up to him and shows his watch, revealing something shocking. There were still 20 seconds left on the exam timer. White is stunned. Since he had spoken to the invigilator before time ran out, he had broken the rules and was disqualified. Here, it's revealed that while the group was busy fighting, Def had secretly tampered with the clock, reducing the timer. With White disqualified, the camera shifts to Blonde, whose one foot still remained inside the room. Technically, she was now the last remaining candidate in the room. After White is escorted out, Blonde steps back into the room. Using Def's broken glasses, she examines the question paper again. This time, she spots the hidden question. Moments later, the timer officially ends, and Def re-enters the room. The shocking twist? Def is none other than the CEO of the company. Blonde approaches the invigilator and gives the answer to the question. The invigilator reminds her of the question asked at the start of the exam. Do you have any questions? To pass the test, all they had to do was respond to that question. Blonde figured it out just in time and answered correctly. No, I don't have any questions. Impressed by her wit, Def offers Blonde the position of secretary at the company. However, Blonde refuses, stating she would never work for a company that puts lives at risk under the guise of an exam. At this point, the Invigilator explains that Black is still alive. The bullet that injured him wasn't real, but a capsule designed to heal wounds from the inside. This groundbreaking technology was one of the company's many innovations. Relieved, Blonde reconsiders and finally accepts the job. As she leaves, she thanks Def, wrapping up this thrilling story. And with that, this incredible movie comes to an end.